What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here, and welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus check updates, the two new upcoming stimulus packages and infrastructure package, as well as what is going on in the world today. As you probably know, we've had a multitude of various different states that have banned basically having to show an identification that you had a vaccine, also known as passports. Well, we're starting to see that across the United States as more and more states are banning that. Well, Florida is set to ban something else, and that is the cancel culture of what is going on in the world for at least some people today. As you can see here, in a nod to former President Donald Trump, Florida is set to ban deplatforming by tech companies. Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube could be fined for banning political candidates under a bill passed by Florida's legislator. Critics say it's unconstitutional. As you probably know, the largest example of this cancel culture is former President Donald Trump, who was banned from multiple different platforms: Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. And well, now at least one state, starting in Florida, is trying to make this illegal. As you can see here, Florida is on track to be the first state in the nation to punish social media companies that ban politicians like former President Donald Trump under a bill approved Thursday by the state's Republican led legislator. Governor Ron DeSantis, a Republican and close Trump ally who called for the bill's passage, is expected to sign the legislation into law. But the proposal appears destined to be challenged in court after a tech industry trade group called it a violation of the First Amendment speech rights of corporations. Republicans have been barraging Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and other tech companies for booting former President Donald Trump and other conservatives from their platform after violations of the company's rules, including bans on the promotion of violence related to the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Now, Republicans aren't the only people this has happened to. This has happened to hundreds or probably even thousands of people across the globe, different countries, different states. And I think the real issue here is that the social media companies get to be the judge and the jury. And let me know if you think that this is a violation of your free speech. If you talk about the major national platforms like here YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and all of a sudden they just cut your account for saying something that might be on your mind, as long as it's within reason, do you think that they should be able to do that? Currently, they are, and that is a big point of controversy right now, mostly among Republicans. But I mean, if it happened to, say, President Biden, I think that a lot of people from the Democratic side would be as well. And the real question is, should this be able to happen in the future with anybody that's not, say, inciting violence? And well, that's a whole different story. We're not going to go into that today. But yeah, the censorship of free speech on social media platforms is a very real deal today. On the two new upcoming stimulus packages, these are a little bit different than the previous stimulus packages. As you probably know, if you've been watching this show, that former President Donald Trump actually passed 5 different stimulus packages. I'll have to go find the speech from former Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, who's now Senate Minority Leader, that basically said, well, we passed 5 stimulus packages underneath former President Donald Trump, and now the Biden administration we can't find bipartisanship. But it's kind of a double-edged sword there, because it's almost like, well, yeah, you're right. We passed 5 stimulus packages underneath former President Donald Trump. So why aren't the Republicans voting for the first stimulus package underneath Biden? It's like all of a sudden the Republicans don't want to pass any stimulus packages, but they were okay with passing 5 of them underneath former President Donald Trump. Yes, it's kind of a double-edged sword there. It's kind of like, well, Mitch, but yeah, it's like, but the Republicans are the ones that didn't vote for it. Now, of course, they say that, oh, they don't agree with anything in the package, but I mean, they agreed with everything in the last 5 packages. And I see a lot of Republican concerns because, again, I try to stay neutral on this channel, so I address Democrat concerns, Republican concerns, and everything there. And a lot of Republicans are very concerned with President Biden's spending. But really, at this point, again, you got to remember, former President Donald Trump passed 5 stimulus packages. The first one alone cost more than President Biden's one stimulus package, the third stimulus check package yet to date. Remember, the five packages that were passed by well, really the Republicans, because Republicans controlled the Senate, the presidency, and the House was controlled by the Democrats. The five packages, only two of them had stimulus checks. The other three had other stimulus items in there, such as the Paycheck Protection Program, money for vaccines, money for SNAP, WIC, and EBT, and different programs like that. As you know from watching this channel, there's a lot more than just stimulus checks in some of these packages. The third stimulus check package had literally dozens and dozens of items. Well, the difference is with these two new upcoming packages compared to the last six stimulus packages, nobody really paid for them. The government already is at a deficit even before we pass any stimulus packages. 99% of years, the government runs a national deficit, which means they're spending more than dollars coming in via taxes and other things, mostly taxes. So the government is already at a deficit. So when you add these six stimulus packages onto the top of them, I get the question all the time, who's going to pay for them? Well, the reality is that nobody's going to pay for them, okay? Taxes are already at a deficit. These were added on top, and they're just going to go sit on the national deficit and likely never be paid for. In fact, a lot of economists actually argue that they're not really debts because stimulus checks and most of these stimulus programs don't need to be paid back. There's no interest on them. You don't pay interest on a stimulus check. It's not owed back to the government and vice versa. And so some people argue if it even is debt. Most people on this channel would say it's just stimulus money being sent back to the taxpayers during their time of need, a once in a 100-year pandemic, the government giving back, where normally the government is just taking. However, these next two packages are slightly different as President Biden and, well, the Democrats, and remember, President Biden actually wanted to do this before he even came in office and passed his first stimulus package, is they want to raise taxes. They want to raise taxes on corporations as well as wealthy individuals, what they call the 1%. And remember, President Biden really wanted to raise these taxes before he even came into office. You can see it in his campaign pledges, as when he was campaigning to become president, he would talk about he wants to raise taxes on the corporations. Largely, they're trying to focus on the big corporations that make billions and billions of dollars and pay $0 in taxes. And while although a next stimulus check is very likely, the stimulus portions, you could kind of think that just like the past stimulus checks and the past stimulus programs, nobody really paid for those. It's stimulus. It's not really paid for by government tax hikes or anything like that. But the infrastructure portions of these next packages, President Biden wants to raise taxes on. And it's a very controversial issue. In fact, here's Senator Bernie Sanders on the tax hikes.
Welcome back. Two times, in 2016 and 2020, Bernie Sanders ran for president as an unapologetic progressive, seeking vast increases in government social spending. Both times he lost the Democratic nomination to perceived to be more cautious centrist candidates, Hillary Clinton in 2016, Joe Biden last year. But with President Biden's proposals for vast new spending, it's fair to ask, did Senator Sanders lose the battles but win the party's war of ideas? Well, Bernie Sanders joins me now. Senator Sanders, I saw you smirk there when I did that little tease about that. So go ahead and answer the question. Do you feel as if, when you look at your two campaigns, yes, you're not president, but do you feel as if you won the war of ideas inside your party?
Well, it's not just me. I think what you saw is millions of people standing up, grassroots activists standing up and saying, you know what? At a time of massive income and wealth inequality, maybe, and Chuck, this is a radical idea, but maybe, just maybe, government should represent the needs of a struggling working class and middle class, and not just the 1% and wealthy campaign contributors. And I think all over this country, people said, look, there are massive problems exacerbated by the pandemic. And I think President Biden looked around them and he said, you know what? We've got to address those problems, not worry about the rich and the powerful. So we are beginning to make some progress in dealing with issues that have been neglected for decades.
I'm curious, your focus, when it comes to seeing these plans get passed, how important is the pay-for part of this conversation? How much of this, in your mind, is you're willing, deficit spending, these are investments, you'll get return, And how important do you think it is that you reform the tax code and use that to pay for this?
Well, I think, number one, most importantly, we have to deal with the crises facing this country. We have massive income and wealth inequality. Half our people live on paycheck to paycheck. We've got to raise the minimum wage to a living wage. We've got to do that. We have an infrastructure that is collapsing. We have got to address the existential threat of climate change. And when you do that, Chuck, when you make those investments, we create millions of good paying jobs. We are the only major country not to guarantee health care to all people as a right, the only major country not to have paid family and medical leave. We pay the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Hundreds of thousands of kids can't afford to go to college, and millions leave school deeply in debt. Well, you know what? You got to address those issues. Meanwhile, you got two people on top who own more wealth than the bottom 40% of America. You got major corporation after major corporation not paying one nickel in federal income tax. Warren Buffett, one of the richest guys in the world, reminds us that the effective tax rate for working families is higher than it is for the billionaire class. So in terms of pay for, yeah, I do think we need progressive taxation, which says to the very rich, Biden says the cap should be, the floor should be 400,000. Yeah. Nobody under that should pay more in taxes. But yes, the very rich and large corporations should start paying their fair share of taxes to help us rebuild America and create the jobs that we need.
If you have to make the choice, because some of your Democratic Senate colleagues seem to have a little bit of nervousness about voting for some of these tax increases, but they will vote for the spending. Will you take the spending if it doesn't come with the tax increases?
Well, the devil is in the details, obviously. But I think what has got to happen is we have got to begin addressing the enormous crises facing this country. And that is what I think the president is trying to do. I think once we start discussing these issues in the Congress, there will be differences of opinion. But I think there is a consensus, at least within the Democratic caucus, that now is the time to start protecting working families and the middle class, and not just the 1%.
Yeah, a couple interesting points there. As you notice, the host there said, well, what if the Senate Democrats aren't willing to go for the tax hikes? And that could happen. I mean, honestly, they could pass these next two packages without any tax hikes or very minimal tax hikes. And again, it would just go on the national deficit, which is almost $30 trillion. And I wouldn't lose sleep over it if I were you, because it doesn't really affect the average everyday person's life at all. In fact, in 1990, the national deficit was $3 trillion. Now it's almost $30 trillion. But does that really affect you? The only way it would affect you would be inflation. But we'll save that for another video later today. Inflation is a whole different ball game and doesn't really correlate per se with the national deficit. Maybe it's a complicated subject. But Bernie Sanders, it was interesting how he said that Bernie Sanders didn't win the presidential candidate either time, but maybe he's won the war. And he says, well, it's not really about me, it's about the people. And when you look at the things that Bernie Sanders is for, and many people consider him President Biden's right-hand man, and the things that Bernie Sanders is for is more stimulus checks. In fact, he's one of the signers on the Senate bill that nearly 24 Senate Democrats are for, which is co-sponsored by Senator Ed Markey and Elizabeth Warren, which is the bill from the Senate for $2,000 monthly stimulus checks. This is an actual bill that has been introduced in the Senate. Although I don't think it'll be passed as a standalone bill at this point, I think the better chances for this to be added into the next stimulus package, which is the second half. The first half is the physical infrastructure package known as the American Jobs Plan, which will create millions of jobs, the White House says. And the second one is really where all the stimulus will be, the American Families Plan, which is where multiple different, in fact, almost the whole entire package is going to be based on stimulus. They're not calling it a stimulus package because, well, they're trying to shore up as much support. There are some people, a lot of Republicans, to be honest, almost all the Republicans, that say we shouldn't be passing any more stimulus. And we've seen that in the third stimulus package very clearly, as not a single Republican voted yes. on the third stimulus check package, which is why it's very, very likely that this next stimulus package, the American Families Plan, will simply be passed just by the Democratic side alone and will be run through the reconciliation process. And Bernie Sanders is really largely probably one of the three most powerful figures on the Democratic side that's in Congress, not President Biden, but congressmen. We have House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and from the Senate, we have Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Bernie Sanders, who's the Senate Budget Chairman, the person who's actually in charge of the reconciliation process. Well, Senator Bernie Sanders has been very outspoken on more stimulus checks. In fact, in the past, for the second and third stimulus check, he actually led the charge on the Democratic side for the push for the second stimulus check and the third stimulus check. In fact, back then, back in December, he was actually co-led with a Republican Senator Josh Hawley, who actually has a new proposal for $1,000 monthly stimulus checks for some Americans. We'll go over that in a future video in more detail. But yeah, Bernie Sanders, more stimulus checks, monthly stimulus checks. He's for the child tax credits, which are also monthly stimulus checks paid to children starting this July of $250 to $300 per month. That is already passed from the third stimulus check package, but they want to increase that for more than just 1 year. Right now, it's currently only passed for the year of 2021. Bernie Sanders is also a big proponent of number one, expanding Medicare to include additional Medicare benefits for everybody and to be free, no charge. Hearing, vision, dental, hearing aids to be covered, and to lower the Medicare eligibility age to as low as age 60 or age 55. He's also a big proponent of raising Social Security so that our seniors and people in the Social Security program can have a little bit more money to live on. We have two different bill proposals there as well that could be done through standalone bills or more likely done through this stimulus package or the next stimulus package. As yes, they're already talking about another stimulus package after these two. Really, the physical infrastructure package isn't really a stimulus package. So we're not really going to call that stimulus because it's not really stimulus, it's physical infrastructure. But the second plan, the American Families Plan, is almost entirely a stimulus package. And when we finally get the final bill and everything is passed, we're likely going to see probably 10 or more different stimulus programs and stimulus provisions in there. Two of which they want is to include or increase Medicare benefits, as we just talked about, and also the increase of Social Security benefits. There's two different bills, one from Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Elizabeth Warren for a $200 per month increase of all Social Security programs, and would the original bill would go for 2 years. But we have another bill for SSI Social Security program, which could bleed over into some of the other programs like SSDI or who knows, other Social Security programs. But that is for an increase of $279 per month forever, not just for 1 or 2 years. So those are a push in the right direction. And as those gain support, any of these different stimulus programs could be included in the final bill when all is said and done. Remember, the second stimulus check was added in just 2 days before they passed the bill in the House of Representatives, and the $10,200 unemployment tax break, which was passed in the third stimulus check package, which actually gave the average American who was on unemployment last year an extra $1,000 in stimulus money, was added the day of they passed it in the Senate. Literally the day of, they were still negotiating the package. It was added in there at the last minute, and then they passed the package. So stimulus items and different stimulus provisions, stimulus checks, Social Security raises, Medicare, unknown stimulus programs that we don't even know about, like the $10,200 for unemployment income that was tax-free. We didn't even know about that. We had never even heard a word about that until it was passed in the Senate the day of. The day of they announced it, it was passed. So yeah, that just goes to show you that multiple anything stimulus related can be added in or even removed up until the day they pass this bill. And that's why the momentum and the push right now is very important for stimulus. So I'll keep you up to date on all these stimulus items. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe down below and join our family of subscribers. It's completely free to do so. We don't charge anything or try to get you to join any memberships here on this channel. It's completely free, and I bring you the latest up-to-date stimulus news and what's going on in the world today or might pertain to us as Americans on this channel. Remember, new videos come out every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., 8 p.m., and 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't miss an episode because we cover different programs and different items in each video. You can click this top video here to watch my newest stimulus check video next. And this video is a new petition you can sign with over 2 million signatures to help pass the fourth stimulus check. So click on one of those videos next. Thanks, guys, and I will see you in the next video.